doing something badass would like look and feel a certain way. In those 4 days, you do Mount Lemmon, Mica Mountain, and Miller Peak. And at that point, I was like literally pushed past all my edges, all my limits. Oh yeah, I started hallucinating, I think day 8 or 9. You know, in those moments, of course, it was just like so hard. Kind of what I'm basing my coaching philosophy on is what I did leading up to the Arizona Trail. I would like to be competitive. I don't know what that's gonna look like, and we like lose track of where we're at. So just allowing things to unfold. You know, it's funny, when I was out on the Arizona Trail, I was like promising, I was like, Georgia, do not sign up for Cocodona. This stuff is so, why do you do this to yourself? And then I signed up 5 days after I finished.
Hi everyone, we are back with our Meet the Team series. It's Heidi, Allan, and
Bryce Brooks.
And we're here today with another special guest. We have Georgia Porter on here. So hi, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We're just gonna jump right into our questions. If you want to give us like a little brief overview of your background, where you're from, and then we'll dive deeper.
Yeah. Background, like how far back?
As far back as you want to go.
Where are you from originally, Georgia?
I'm originally from Washington State, and I grew up not running, did a few other sports, was a thrower on the track team. I didn't do it well, but I started running in my mid-20s, like maybe when I was 25 or 26. I loved running on the trails in the Northwest. I ended up doing the track and road thing for a little while, or for quite a while actually, and then recently in the last couple of years I found my way back to the trails. So it's been a nice full circle journey. And right now I live and train in beautiful Flagstaff, Arizona.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you've did collegiate track at what college?
Western State Colorado University up in Gunnison.
Okay, awesome.
Which now has become like kind of like an epicenter of trail running, as far as like for getting the young trail runners in there. I know they had a T-Rex sponsorship for a while, putting out some big names. So you were kind of one of the OGs of Western Colorado.
There's a few OGs before me, but yeah, the coach for the trail team up there, Josh, I also had him as a coach, and so when things are runnable up there, it's incredible trail running, but I would say it's only runnable like 6 or 7 months out of the year because the winters are very intense. So I like Flagstaff a little better for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Slightly more mild winters. What got you first interested in running?
I come from a family of runners. Like my mom and my 2 sisters all 3 of them are very incredibly talented. And I feel like I was the black sheep in the family for a while. I was like, I'm not going to do this running thing. And then when I was in my early 20s, I was working as a paramedic. I was a little out of shape, and I just wanted a way to get into exercise. So initially I signed up for a triathlon, like a sprint one, a short one. Did okay at the swimming, absolutely sucked on the bike. I hate biking, and so it's just like I got obliterated. And then I came back really strong in the run. And so after that experience, my sister was like, hey, why don't you just try the running thing out? So at that point, I was like, okay, I'll sell my bike. That wasn't any fun, and I'll jump more consciously into running.
Is it correct that your mom was a running coach?
Yeah, my mom's running journey is really incredible. She didn't start running until she was like early 40s, maybe 41. And she was running with my sisters when they were on the track team and they were doing really well. So she just would run with them. And I think when she was like 42 or 43, she missed the qualifiers for the Olympic trials only by like a minute or 2.
No kidding.
Wow.
As somebody who'd only been running a couple of years in the early 40s, it's just really impressive. So after that, she did a lot of trail stuff, and then she coached the high school team, and then she still coaches running individually now. But she's an incredible coach as well.
That's awesome. Do like family get-togethers now involve a lot of running adventures?
They do. We don't get together too often, but there was a time when all 3 of us sisters were living in Flagstaff, so we would get to run together then.
That's really cool. One of your really big achievements is that you qualified for the Olympic marathon trials. Can you tell us a little bit about that and when that was?
Yeah, that was in 2020, and I had a lot of highs and lows with my road running journey. I think that was definitely one of the highs. It was very fun to qualify and just to be in the mix with a ton of really fast females. It was a really historic year. I think over 500 females qualified. Um, and I went into it knowing I was not trying to make an Olympic team. So I just got to be in the mix. I wasn't really necessarily going for any type of time or place. And I tend to perform and compete best when that's my headspace. So I just got to run my heart out. Um, and it was a blast starting off really smart, progressing and moving upward throughout the whole race was really fun. And all my friends got a kick out of this, but we came in with a bib what we were ranked at, like the time that you got ranked at coming in. So I was bib number 69. So
Nice.
everybody got a kick out of that. But that was my ranking coming in, and then I ended up taking 28th. So I was really pleased with the performance I put out at that race.
Where was that at?
I was in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
Very humid there.
Yeah, and it's so funny looking back now that I'm on the trails because it was considered a very hilly course and it had like 1,200 feet of elevation for a marathon, and that was hilly, and it's
For
all
a road, yeah,
perspective.
that's a lot.
And now I look at that, I'm like, that was not hilly.
That's a huge accomplishment to just even say that you got to compete in the trials. That's really cool. What sparked your transition then to trails?
Yeah, I think I ran on the roads for 5 or 6 years, and after the trials especially, I feel like I was really just chasing times and trying to look for sponsorship. And so I went through a period of time where I just really lost my joy of running. It wasn't fun to train anymore. It really wasn't fun to compete. And I was so fixated on just the outcome of races that, yeah, I was just pushing too hard too. It led to a lot of overtraining. So I think at the end of 2021, I ran the Chicago Marathon and I was so overtrained. I was dealing with insomnia leading up to it. I was, yeah, just not in a good headspace. My mental health was suffering. I got into the race. It was horrible. I started suffering like 5K in. And while I was out there, I was like, something needs to shift. This isn't sustainable to be running this way. So I kind of knew that that was my last marathon. And I actually thought it might be the end of my running in general.
Oh, really?
But I took a couple of weeks off and I just like really kind of did some soul searching about if I wanted to keep running. And I went out on a trail run and I was like, oh yeah, I love running on the trails. And I think in my mind, when I was on the roads, I was like, oh, I'll do the trails when I'm in my 40s, when I've retired, when I don't want to be, you know, fast anymore or something. I don't know. I had a lot of stories in my head about it. But in that moment, I was like, oh, this is all I want to do is run on the trails. So why don't I just do that now? And yeah, I haven't really touched much pavement since.
Was that in Washington?
No, this experience at the time I was living in Grand Junction, Colorado. So I was like, yeah, running on a few trails out there, like kind of having this epic shift in my life.
Super underrated trails, in my opinion, around Grand Junction.
Oh yeah, this was in the Lunch Loops area.
Yep.
Yep. Super fun little spot, just really enjoyable. And yeah, when I was out there, it was like I wasn't wearing a watch, so I wasn't conscious of my pace. I wasn't trying to train for anything, and it really brought me back to why I started running and what my joy was, just flying around on the trails.
For sure. Is it correct your first trail race was Crown King Scramble in 2022?
I think I did Coldwater Rumble before that.
Okay.
And I might have done Black Canyon before that too. I like jumped in with both feet, but I think I did, if that's the progression of it, you probably know better than I do, but I think it went Coldwater, the 20 miler, Black Canyon 60K, Crown King 50K.
Yep.
And yeah, when you switched over to trails, you were super impressive right off the bat, podiuming every time. What were some of the highlights or like a specific race that you like really treasure?
Oh, that's hard to pick just one. That little series of those three was my first season trail running, and I remember right off the bat at Coldwater finishing and just instantly everybody talking and hanging out together. And that is not something I personally experienced in the road world. So to me, I was just like, oh my gosh, there's a community here. And specifically, the Arizona trail running community is really special. And after that, when you'd see people at races, there was this sense of like, I'm out here running with these people, not like, oh, it's this thing where I'm running against them and I don't want to talk to them. So I was really drawn in by the community immediately at that Coldwater race. Um, and then Crown King was so fun. I ran it with my very good friend Leah Rosenfeld, and I think we ran together the first like maybe 21 miles. We had no goals for that race. We were just like laughing and joking with people at aid stations and just having a blast. And I think around mile 21, she decided to hang back. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start pushing it. And it was so surprising to me because I didn't know what place we were in. It was maybe fourth or fifth.
Mm-hmm.
It was very surprising to get that win because we were just having so much fun. And I think that taught me that racing and competing and having fun are not mutually exclusive. Like I can do both at the same time. And so that felt really sweet.
Yeah, I think there's, I mean, something to be said about Crown King. It's remote. It's one of the races where there's no going back once you kind of pass the halfway point. Like you can't really drop. It's not very accessible. It's like, and so everybody's just in this situation of like do or die, like make it to the top by any means necessary.
Grit
and then,
your teeth out. And
yeah, exactly. And then the top, you make it to the saloon, and it is, I think that's like, in my opinion, one of the pinnacles of like the Arizona trail running community because everybody sticks around at a saloon. Everybody gets free barbecue, grabs a beer, drinks, hangs out. Yeah, that's a really special event. Mm-hmm. So moving forward just a little bit, you moved up in distance at High Lonesome was your first 100-mile race. Is that correct?
Yep.
So what was some of the inspiration for signing up for your first 100-mile race?
I think what I discovered as I jumped in the trail world was that it's not about chasing times, really, pretty much at all. But there's so many different avenues you can go with it. You can start going into longer distances. You can start going up into mountain races or flat sea level races. Like there's so many options. And for me, I could feel myself getting pulled to want to do longer distances. I think this is like probably sadistic or something, but there was this like, I wanted to find my edges and my limits. And I could tell that there was more in there. Like even moving up to the 100K, I was like, okay, there's more in here. There's more to be explored. And so I heard the 100-miler referenced as the distance of truth. And I was like, oh, I got to know what it's like to be in this. And I want to do it. I want to do it up in the mountains. I want it to be as epic as possible.
Well, it's definitely not the easiest 100-mile around.
No. And there was a few things that drew me into that race. It's in the Collegiate Peaks, which is just stunning. It's so beautiful. So Lindsay McDonald, my training partner, and I got to prep a lot for that on the course. We probably saw like at least 70 miles on the course before racing, which was really fun. And then that race in general, how it's done, I really appreciate the race director Caleb's intention with having equal spots for male and female athletes. I also love the media he puts out because he doesn't ever seem to focus on the top runners. It's talking about runners, like a lot of beautiful stories that I think sometimes we miss of like people chasing cutoff times. He featured someone on there who was an amputee going into this race, like really inspiring things. So in every way I fell in love with that race, and I knew I wanted it to be my first 100.
Can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like during the race?
Yeah, it was hard like the whole time. It was really great. Lindsay and I got to run together on and off for the first 50 miles, which felt really special to be out there with my training partner that we'd logged so many miles together. And I feel like her and I stayed really, really smart. We let the field go. We were pretty far back, even in the female field, through at least half the race. And we weren't concerned. You know, we could tell people were pushing it, but her and I would stop at creeks, jump in, dunk our shirts. We'd, try to be laughing and joking as much as we could and really being there and enjoying the experience. I started hurting and getting a little knee pain, which concerned me before mile 50. So I rolled into the halfway point crying. And it was funny because my intention was to tell my crew, like, I don't know if I can do another 50 miles. Like, my knee hurts really bad. I'm not feeling great. And they, like, did not even let me sit down. They Theragunned me, slapped me on the butt, gave me some food, and they're like, get back out there. So I, like, didn't even have a choice. But
That's a good crew.
Yeah, that's a good.
it's a great crew. I'm very fortunate. It's
Who
the
was
reason
in your
why
crew? Give
a
them a
lot
little
of the
shout out.
people, yeah, a lot of the people who are in the Arizona Trail crew also. It's like this little unit that we've developed. We go to each other's races. But my partner Sean, one of my best friends Meredith, one of my other really close friends Will, they were all there at High Lonesome, and then we had a couple other people join us for AZT. But with High Lonesome, I got to have pacers the second half, and I love having people out there with me. It's like I love sharing the journey, and it was really fun with them because we were just chasing people down, moving up the female field. And I remember a moment in that race where we rolled into mile 85, and I could tell my crew was acting weird, like something was going on. And I looked over and I saw this woman who was in the lead at that point, and I was like, "Oh, was she in first?" And they're like, "Yep, and we need to get you out of here right now." So they like threw me out of the aid station, and my friend Meredith started pacing me, and she's like, "Hey, I know you don't want to, but we need to run a couple really fast miles to like put some distance here." So it's fun to share that moment of moving into first place with my crew.
That's cool that they pushed you so hard. And I mean, it sounds like it was a very successful race. So you mentioned a little bit that they were the same crew for the Arizona Trail. So that was your most recent feat. Would you kind of go into detail about what that is, what you did?
Maybe we should lay out what the Arizona Trail is for anybody listening. Can you kind of describe what that, just brief overview of what it is?
Oh, the Arizona Trail is so special. I know you know, Bryce, you've done it probably more than once, right?
A lot of pieces more than once. Only did it all the way through once.
Okay. It's an incredible trail. It goes from the Utah border to the Mexico border. It's a little over 800 miles. I want to say like 110,000 feet of vert, something like that. And you're just going through the most incredible spots in Arizona. It goes through the Grand Canyon, goes through my favorite parts of wilderness, the Four Peaks, the Superstition, the Mazatzals, and then you get down to the Sky Islands down south. It is an incredibly beautiful, diverse trail, and there's sections that are smooth and flowy and sections that are really technical. It is everything that Arizona trail running is. I can't
Well
say
said.
enough good things about that trail.
And
Yeah.
it's 800 miles. I don't know if you said that. And you set the FKT. And what was your time?
It was just shy of 17 days, so I think it was like 16 days and 22 hours.
Yep. And you did it supported, which means you did it with a crew, kind of as a team effort.
It was a team effort, and I feel like it doesn't make sense for me to say I got the FKT. It's like my crew and I did this FKT together. I would not have done it without them, like simply put.
It's such a huge endeavor. Can you like walk us through like the planning and the execution of taking on that kind of challenge?
Yeah. I wish I could make a bunch of memes for the beforehand, what I thought would happen, how I thought it would go, and then what actually happened. So dramatically different, like on so many levels. But for me, the planning going in, I knew that crew was going to be important. I knew that that's what I wanted. And it's funny when I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, the FKT was cool, but that was kind of a cherry on top. For me, what I got out of this was building this community of incredible human beings that I'm going to be close with forever. And we shared this like life-changing experience together like that. So I knew beforehand I wanted to assemble a crew in this way. So my partner Sean and then Meredith and Will were natural choices. They'd already crewed me before, but we also had Matt Bellis, who's one of my good friends, come on board. He was our team mom, did all our cooking, had his van out there. And then my good friend Cam, who's a physical therapist, was also out there for much of the trip, and just was a great support. And then we had a few friends here and there. Lindsay my friend Sarah, they would come and pace occasionally. So I knew that I wanted to start with like a solid crew. But the logistics going in, I had Joe Stringbean coach
Yep.
me. He has all the knowledge on the Arizona Trail. So he really helped me formulate a plan. So I tried to prep my crew as best as I could because I knew I wouldn't be any help out there. So I put a document together of like all the crew stops. This document was like 60 pages of each crew stop along the way. And then the logistics of like gear and food. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, we're so prepared. And Joe told me before going in, he's like, yeah, you can prepare as much as you can, and then shit's just going to go sideways when you're out there. And that was the best advice I got because that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, we prepped as best we could. And then once we were out there, you get into a flow. I think I thought initially, oh, I'm going to be running for this certain amount of time. I'll stop, I'll eat, I'll rest. And the way the crew access works is you don't get, if you're doing it supported, you don't get much of a choice of where you stop. You can't stop when you feel tired or when you want to. You have to stop where your crew is. So there was like big, massive 20+ hour days we had to do to get to the next crew stop. And I would just be thoroughly worked. And yeah, all the other stuff that goes into that. So let me know if that answers your question. I feel like it went on a tangent.
Yeah, no, that was great. What would you say was like the most challenging thing that you had to face on the trail?
Oh, there was a few things. I think this surprised me a little bit, but one of the most challenging things was that going into it, I thought doing something badass would like look and feel a certain way. I thought I'd be out there just like crushing it, looking all awesome. And in reality, I just really rode a lot of waves of really intense highs and lows. And some of the lows were incredibly, like I'd just be stumbling around on the trail at 2 or 3 in the morning crying for hours. And in those moments, it didn't feel very badass, but I think that was, I really had to let that expectation go of what it should look like and just be there and show up for what was unfolding. And so that happened in a few different ways on the trail. I think a couple other challenges. One was, of course, the pain. So I really reoriented my relationship with pain out there, for sure. It changed dramatically. And I had no idea how intense the sleep deprivation would be because my nerve pain was so bad at night that I really wasn't sleeping even when I would try to lay down. So I essentially went like 17 days on very, very, very little sleep. Especially the last 2 days, I took basically 2 90-minute naps each night. It was wild. So now I'm like not as scared for Cocodona because it's like, okay, I can go 3 days without sleep. That's not the part that scares me anymore.
Yeah. You can crew it you could have the most dialed plan, but some of those sections are just, you cannot reach them with a vehicle. Like the Mazatals, like you're out there for 40 plus 50 miles with basically no access for them to reach you. Was there a specific segment that you can recall as kind of like the pinnacle, like the most challenging section to get through? Because in my head, it goes to the Mazatals, the Superstitions, kind of like that midsection that gets so verty, so technical, and just inaccessible.
Yeah, I think that was probably the most challenging section for the crew for that reason. I do remember this moment. I think for me, that wasn't the most challenging because I was still doing okay. I was still feeling all right, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
So I was really feeling just so much awe and support from the earth and the land that section I really enjoyed, and my pacers were loving being in those sections too. So most of that felt really good. But I do remember a moment, I think it was in the Mazatals, where we got to this crew stop where the crew had to hike in several miles to get to me. It was at night. It was from Barnhart.
Barnhart. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Like near Mount Pili.
Yep. And so essentially they had to hike in and they set up some stuff for me, and I wanted to stop there so bad. It was night. I was hurting, and I knew what was up ahead. I knew they were going to try and figure out a shorter section, but if not, it was going to be a long one. And so Meredith was there. I was like, just give it to me straight. How much more do I have? And she was like, 18 miles.
Uh,
And I was just like, oh, it was like, it was so hard to hear that news. But
mhm.
I would say the hardest part for me was the last 4 days because um, in those 4 days you do Mount Lemmon,
Yep.
Mica Mountain, and Miller Peak. And at that point, I was like literally pushed past all my edges, all my limits. And I, the last 2 days I couldn't run because of my Achilles. So it was just hiking. So they were long, long days that felt like I was trying, like those dreams where you are trying to get somewhere and it's getting further and
Yep.
further away. That's what it felt like. So that was for me the most challenging part physically and mentally.
Were there any hallucinations during that time?
Oh yeah, I started hallucinating, I think day 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
And the hallucinations during the day were very fun. They were like kind of psychedelic, fractally. Nature looked amazing, so I enjoyed that. And then at night, it was just like, shadows or whatever. Rocks would always be something else. So it just got so normal that I stopped. I didn't talk about it much. It was
Oh
like,
man,
yeah, it was a very normal
internalized it all.
the
Holy
most
cow.
expensive psychedelic.
Yeah, yeah. Any wildlife encounters out there that you remember?
Yeah, we had some really cool encounters. I think the coolest was we saw a Gila monster.
Oh, you
Oh,
did.
wow.
Those are
We
rare. That's
did.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so speaking of hallucinations, I have no idea. I've never seen a Gila monster. I didn't know what they were. So when I saw it on the trail, in those last 4 days, I was so out of it. I was like, is this real? Like, am I seeing a small dinosaur-looking animal? So that was really cool. Yeah, and then a bunch of elk. We saw a pack of turkeys, which was fun.
That's cool.
A few things, but I think the Gila monster was probably like the peak. Oh, we did come across a couple snakes, rattlesnakes, things like that.
Yep, yep.
Classic. What was your favorite section of the Arizona Trail?
Oh, that's so
That's a tough one.
hard.
I know.
You know, one of the most, okay, I'm gonna pick two. I know that's not what you asked, but that that stretch from like starting to go into, I think you hit Mazatals first. From that stretch to the Superstitions, it's just everything is stunning the whole time.
Four Peaks. Yep.
Just so gorgeous. And ending with that section in the Superstitions was one of my favorites. And then I think the descent off of Mount Lemmon like surprised me at how
Oh,
absolutely gorgeous that was. It was so beautiful. It was so hard in that moment, but even in that moment, like feeling so much going on, I could not help but take in how beautiful it was.
it's interesting because that's not one of the easier sections.
Oh no, it was not. That was one of the hardest
Yeah,
sections.
for sure. Oh man.
And then I know that I'm going to actually backtrack a bit. I don't think we ever got an answer of what was your inspiration for wanting to go for the FKT.
Hmm. Yeah, I think after the 100 milers that I did, I was like, okay, there's more. Like I want more adventure. I want to really find some edges. And it's so ridiculous because I didn't want to do like a 200 or 250 miler because I was scared of the sleep deprivation, which is so ironic. Because I was like, oh, if I do a longer trail, I'll be like sleeping all the time, which was not the case. But yeah, I've been on several parts of the Arizona Trail just living in Flagstaff, so that trail has just always called to me since I've moved here. And after those 200 milers, I was like, I think it was like a bit naive, but I was like, oh, I want to try something bigger. I want to go for a bigger adventure. I think I didn't realize in the moment how much of a step up it was, in experience, but I'm really glad that I didn't know that in the moment.
So when you finished, I'm assuming you were a little tired. Did you feel like you had set out or you had accomplished what you set out to do, not so much in accomplishing the FKT, but kind of pushing your limits? Like, did you like find the edge of your limits while you were out there? Is that what it felt like?
Oh, I found them. I found them in every way. And, in those moments, of course, it was just like so hard. And I think there were plenty of times I was like, why am I doing this? And not knowing if I could keep going or if I could continue. But I definitely pushed into a lot of edges. And it was really beautiful because what I noticed about that experience of going past my limits of what I thought I could do, it required me to find deeper wells, like in myself, in what I could do, and also in the support of the crew, and the support of my friends, and the support of the earth itself and the land as I was moving on it. It necessitated me drawing on these deeper wells, and it was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had. So yeah, I think I accomplished that, and it's beautiful because that would have happened regardless of the FKT or not. The FKT is just a byproduct of this.
I love that. So I kind of want to now switch over to your future goals. Cocodona is coming up next for you. Do you have any goals for that, or what is kind of your focus for that race?
It's funny, when I was out on the Arizona Trail, I was like Georgia, do not sign up for Cocodona. This stuff is why do you do this to yourself? And then I signed up 5 days after I finished. I texted Bryce, like, I went in. So I think my goals, I really, again, I just want another adventure. I want another experience with my crew. We're all going to be out there for it. So that feels really special to get to have that again, even though it's going to be for less time. As far as goals, I would like to be competitive. I don't know what that's going to look like. We were talking about it before we started recording, but I do feel pretty undertrained for this compared to how I've showed up for most races in my running history, which I think is fine. I've really tried to listen to my body as I've come back from the Arizona Trail, and it's just wanted to come back pretty slow. So, but I think if I still have an A day out there, it could equate to being competitive. I don't have like a place or a time goal. There's a lot of fast females in the race this year, which is really exciting, and I would love to be just in the mix of that.
So the route, which is completely unique from the Arizona Trail, which is pretty cool. You kind of get to experience traversing Arizona in a different view. It also finishes in your hometown, Flagstaff, which is pretty cool. Have you scouted much of the course? I'm sure you've done a lot of the Flagstaff stuff, but have you explored other parts of the course?
Yeah, a bit in Sedona. My friend Cam, who will be crewing me, he ran Cocodona last year, and I crewed and paced him.
Yep.
So I got to see parts of the course through pacing, and then we just went down and did Hangover and Schnebly and a few of those things. So I've been on parts of the course down there.
Yeah.
I plan to go a little further south. It'll be interesting with all the heat, but I think that'll be good prep for it. So I plan to I would love to check out the climb at the beginning up for the Bradshaw. So
oh boy.
I'll probably do that. Yeah. So
I just did that on Sunday, actually.
Okay.
Well, I did it after you did the climb up to the Bradshaws.
Well, the Crown King, but the
Yeah.
Cocodona one is
A little different,
a
but
bit less on Forest Road.
yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know what that's like before jumping on it. So that is in the works. I think our crew is going to go out and camp, and so I'll do 2 big back-to-back days out there, and have the crew out there to run with me and camp and just have some fun.
Oh, that'd be cool. Are you bringing back most of the main characters from Arizona Trail? Yep.
All of them, yeah, and it's really fun. Matt just raced Black Canyon, and our whole crew came out to crew and pace him.
Nice.
So we are like this little unit now, and Meredith is going to be racing High Lonesome, so we're all going to go out there and support her. So
Oh, sweet.
yeah, we just
So
have
cool.
this our crew rolls deep, So now for Cocodona, we're like talking about costumes and like how can we make this experience really fun?
Heck yeah.
That's really cool. And I just want to kind of now shift. You have a coaching business, correct?
Just started it up. Yeah, I've been coaching for many, many years. I coached on another platform, but I just started my own thing here last month.
And what do you call it?
Running Rediscovered.
Love it. Does that have to do with that time in your life when you kind of lost your love of running and then refound it? Is that where you got the name?
Yeah, that was definitely the catalyst. And then kind of what I'm basing my coaching philosophy on is what I did leading up to the Arizona Trail. And for me, that was a lot of letting go of this attachment that I had to the watch and the metrics that I was letting dictate how I was running or how I felt about my run. So for all of my training for like 4 or 5 months leading up to the Arizona Trail, I didn't use a smartwatch once. I didn't put one on my wrist at all. I had no idea what my metrics are. But I really got to experience being more embodied in my running, more connected to myself, more connected to the land I was running on. And so this isn't to say that I'm like completely anti-metrics or anything, but in the coaching I do, I would really love to help other runners connect back to the joy of running and the joy of what it feels like to be in your body running on trails. And so I don't think it'll be for everyone, but I think that there's probably plenty of people that have walked through the same journey I have, where it's like we start out and we love it, and then slowly something happens along the way where we kind of lose our way and lose our joy. And so I'd love to help people reconnect with that.
Yeah, I was going through the website, which we'll link in the notes of this episode, and you emphasize the importance of connecting to the world around us, not being so lost in the metrics, like you said. Could you talk about a little bit how you incorporate that philosophy into your coaching?
Yeah, so one really practical way is um, I do work off the 5 zone model. So most runners will probably be familiar with that. However, instead of saying, okay, I want you to warm up in zone 1 and then do 10 by 1 minute in zone 5 and ascribe paces to that, I help athletes have a felt sense of what those zones are in their own body. And so, for example, I just had an athlete send her out on a workout and was like, hey, we're prescribing no paces on this, but here's the zones I want you to hit. Here's the times that we're going for. And so that way, for her, she was running based on the information that her body's giving her, based on her breathing cues, based on her effort cues. And then that's really applicable when you get into a race. So many times people get into a race and they're so focused on the watch or other people around them that they go out too hard and they're not actually in tune with the feedback that their body's giving them. So that's one way. I also want to do a lot of like getting runners to orient to the world around them, because sometimes we just start off on a run and we're in our heads, or we are listening to something and we're focused on the watch, but instead taking a moment before the run to just pause, touch the ground, look around, where am I, be connected, be in our body in this moment right here. And that can set us up to really continue that practice on the run, and then hopefully beyond the running too.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's super unique and pretty refreshing, I think, in the trail community and kind of how I see trail running. I think, I mean, most of the coaching that I see around is completely based on metrics for the most part, or time goals or certain like numerical goals. So I think you're taking it from like a really cool approach, and I really respect it.
Hey, I just want to say one thing real
Yeah,
quick is
yeah.
what I view this approach as too is and actually a very old approach. And I think a lot of indigenous people who ran on this land before us were doing this. You know, so for me, I don't think it's coming up with something new so much as like remembering how we used to be, how our relationship with running used to be, and connecting back to that.
I love that. What would you say has been the most rewarding thing when it comes to coaching?
Yeah, so I've only been doing this for like a month. So I have an athlete with me now who I have coached previously. And actually, my experience with her has been one of the most rewarding things, to actually build the coach athlete relationship. So it's not like, oh, just seeing a bunch of numbers come in from a person who ran and this is their heart rate and this is the vert they got or whatever, but actually having a relationship to say, like, what is running to you? What is your relationship with running like? How is it serving you in your life? And to learn each person's story and journey is so unique and special. And then, you know, to go through the lows with them, but also to celebrate the highs, you know, the excitement, the wins. Yeah, I just really love the coach athlete relationship.
That's really cool. I like what you're building.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to aspiring trail runners, people new to running, people just trying to get into it? What would you say to them, maybe before they go on their first trail run or before they kind of take the leap into training for a certain event?
Oh, that's a great question. Mm, I think this is advice that I give to myself often, that I have to like remember. But I think I would encourage people to just trust that everything is unfolding perfectly. There's not like, sometimes we have this urgency or desire to get further ahead and we like lose track of where we're at. So just allowing things to unfold, and that's where the juiciness and the goodness is just like is in the unfolding, like as it's happening right now.
Yeah, appreciate the journey. I mean, I feel like I get more satisfaction out of training most of the time. I could definitely relate to that.
Yeah. And then what's beautiful about that is you're not hinging everything on this outcome of one event,
Right.
because even if you have a bad race, as long as you're there for the process and you're experiencing that and enjoying it, then it's like, okay, if the race doesn't go well, that sucks and you can feel how you feel about it, but it's not like I wasted 3 or 4 months.
Yeah,
Yep.
totally.
Finding joy in the journey. I have a couple of rapid fire questions for you. Just one word answers. What is your go-to post-run meal?
A burger.
Perfect. What is your favorite pair of running shoes?
Hmm. I've been enjoying some Hokas recently. I feel like I don't know the actual names of the shoes, which is like such a bad trail runner thing. I really should know, but I think I'm in a pair of Speed Goats and ones that start with an M. Bryce.
Mafates.
Yeah.
Yeah, love those ones. If you could go on a long run with anyone, who would it be and why?
Oh, do they have to be alive?
No.
Okay. I would go with Carl Sagan. Yes, I just feel like he had a very brilliant mind and a beautiful spirit, and I would just want to go on a run with him and experience him sharing about the world around him while we ran.
That is a great answer.
Cool. And then let's see, if you could only listen to one song every time that you ran, what song would you pick?
Oh, I want to rebel against this question because I don't think I could do that. Oh gosh. Can I just pick a band?
Go for it.
Okay. This really helped me when I was out running the last section, in particular the Arizona Trail, but definitely Rage Against the Machine.
Yep. Yep.
Nice. Well, I think that's all my questions. It's been super enriching to talk to you. Like, you love every answer, and the depth which you feel in trail running, and I think you bring a lot to the sport. So, is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, just super grateful that you're creating a space for people to tell their stories, and yeah, that I get to be a part of this team. So thanks.
Yeah, feel grateful. I've been able to kind of see your trail journey unfolding. Like I think we met before the first Crown King Scramble or at it, and since then you went up to McDowell Mountain 50 mile, then the 100 miles, and then jumping up to the 800 mile, and now you got Cocodona. So I mean, love the variety that you're doing. I think you're doing it right, and thanks for being on the team and sitting down and chatting with us.
Yeah, thanks guys.